Sup, studs? Welcome to Lucy's Library Reads. Today I'm going to be talking about books and authors that got me into reading throughout the years. And so by the end of this, hopefully you have kind of a nice new curated list of books to either get you into reading out of a reading slump or just give you something new to read. So here we go. I was a reader from a really young age. As an only child, I had to learn to entertain myself, and I've been chasing the high of my first Goosebumps book since I was in third grade. And now, flash forward, I'm an adult and I'm still trying to figure out how to entertain myself or spend my time, and I don't really want to be doom scrolling. Book Talk, Bookstagram, and my opinion, new releases really have been feeling very similar. And if you don't like the fantasy or romantasy genre, it's kind of like, well, where do we go from here? If a book is mainstream, or basically if anything's mainstream, I'm not going to consume it because I hate having all of these expectations and hype up around something and then reading it or watching it and then just being let down because you go into it with all these expectations and it can never live up to your expectations. So I try to wait until the mainstream thing has kind of died down a little bit before I will get into that. But either way, I wanted to share with you my top authors and why I love them, and then the different books that really formed me as a reader to hopefully get you a curated list. I love psychological thrillers and horror novels, and so when I found Lucinda as an author, I was immediately enamored by her writing style and just the stories that she tells. So I've read 3 of her books: The Perfect Child, Saving Noah, and Phantom Limb. And these books really take on these taboo topics, areas of life that we, I think, like to brush past or ignore, and it gives you an inside look into how life plays out with these seemingly crazy situations. I think I read all of her books in less than 2 days because I just really had to know what was going on. So I would really recommend those if you want something that grips you from the beginning and doesn't let you go until the end. Similarly, I happened upon Ashley Audrain in 2022 when she released The Push, and that book I think got really big a year or so ago, and I am very proud of myself to say I read it before it got big because obviously I don't like to read mainstream stuff. But holy shit, her storytelling was so gripping, but it felt so real because of the detail and her ability to bring you in from her first person POV. So you really feel like you're the main character. I love The Push, and then when she released The Whispers, I snatched that up immediately because I think Ashley is my favorite author. And both of these books I think cover motherhood and friendship among women, and more specifically the darker side of motherhood and the dynamics of women when there is competition and potential drama and secrets that could be held by the people that you think are your friends. Honestly, she writes such great books that I could not recommend them enough. I will say I do not recommend The Push for if you are a new mom. Wait till your kid is 3 and then definitely give her a go. I'm also so excited to find out that she was coming out with another novel in January of 2027 called The Things You'll Never Know. So I will definitely be reading that. So an oldie but a goodie, Jodi Picoult. I did look up how to pronounce her last name, so I am confident in that one. I started reading her when I think it was a junior or senior in high school, and I just adored the stories that she tells and the way that she constantly changes the POV of the character. The first book that I read of hers was My Sister's Keeper, and if you don't know what that is, it's a book about a girl who has cancer, and it's about her sister who is kind of her specifically made donor for blood and bone marrow and all of these organs and all that stuff. There is a movie out. I will say I loved the book. Chef's kiss, 10 out of 10. So gripping and so emotional and so good. The movie, I will never forgive the ending of that movie. Anyway, I will say that my longest standing favorite book ever is called 19 Minutes. So I love an author that can make you care about all of the characters that you're reading. She makes you love the ones that are seemingly good, seemingly bad. She writes them in a way that makes you care. And she is truly gifted in the way of kind of covering these like challenging topics. She humanizes certain situations, and she gives you that like gut-wrenching point, that mic drop moment at the end of like, oh, holy crap, that's what I was supposed to take away from this book. She is on a league of her own, in my opinion, with how she can get that point across in her books. I will give you a trigger warning for 19 minutes. It is about a school shooting, but don't let that deter you. I really do think that anybody, especially in the United States, should be reading that, because this is such a prevalent topic that is happening in our everyday life. And she goes through it from both the perpetrator, the victim, and then kind of the like law enforcement side of things as well. And I think that she does a very nice job of going through that. I've read a lot of her other books, or more of her older ones, and I've really enjoyed all of them. She covers such cool topics that like you would have never really heard about before, or that like you just don't really know much about, and she goes in and she researches that, and she like, goddamn if she doesn't make me think that she has all of those lived experiences. I haven't read any of her newer titles because the topics just haven't really like spoke to me in the way that her other ones have, but that doesn't mean that I won't read them. So those are my auto authors. I really love them and I love their styles, so I would really recommend pretty much anything by them. These are books that I would like love to discuss with someone over like a cup of coffee and just get their take on what they took away from it, different areas that they focused on, how they feel. These books are very deep and can have a lot of different like topics around them that you can really go from. And so anyway, I have 3 books that I don't really hear a lot about on like Bookstagram, Book Talk, etc. And maybe they're just not on my side of the internet, and maybe they are. But they've really stayed with me since I read them. And I will say I would also add Saving Noah into this grouping, but that's by Lucinda Berry. So I did mention that earlier. That book in and of itself, I think, could be like a whole topic. But anyway, so the first book that I want to talk about with you is Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. I still think about this book, even though I read it in my AP Lit class over 10 years ago. Woof. This was my first real introduction to reading about the impacts of imperialism from the colonized group side, not the colonizer. And so this is a story that follows Okonkwo, which is a man in a tribe in Nigeria. European missionaries come to Nigeria to save the tribe from like their savagery. Obviously, like it's from the like Okonkwo's point of view, and so you get the story of like why they do the things that they do, how their tribe functions, and it really just made me take a step back and be like, oh, something isn't right with how we're always told a story. And I really think that this shaped a lot of how I consume media now as an adult, that the story is usually told by the victor or by the party that holds the power, and it's really important to actively seek out an understanding of like the other like person, the other culture, the other community before passing judgment on if the action that's being taken upon them is like correct or good or bad, and what that really means. So I cannot recommend this book enough. It's not too difficult to read. I mean, I read it when I was in 12th grade, and I'm not like the absolute smartest person that's ever walked on this earth. So I think it's a book that like each time you read it, you would take something away different from it. I will be adding this to a reread probably this year, just because like I really, really liked it and I want to see what I can take away from it now. My next book is very controversial. If you have read it, you'll know why, or you may have heard about it a little bit. It's All the Ugly and Wonderful Things by Bryn Greenwood. So this book is absolutely heartbreaking and heartwarming, like at the same damn time. And I don't know how she did it. I loved this book for the reason of like how much it made me think. And it's not like this like complex story. It's so real. And so we follow Wavy, who is our female main character. She starts the book as a young child. She lives in a neglectful household. She has to raise her little brother. And then she meets a guy in her town named Kellen, who's in like this, he's in his early 20s. And they form this friendship where like he really becomes like the trusted adult in her life. I know what you're thinking, and it's not that kind of book. Everything that plays out is so well thought out by Greenwood, the author, but it makes you go through the timeline with both Wavy and Kellen. So you're seeing their like growth, their maturity, both as individuals and together in this friendship, and then you see from where they like started to where they ended up. And so it makes the ending of the book a little bit less challenging to wrap your mind around. I did not expect to love this book as much as I did, and it was like so heart-wrenching, and it really makes you reassess relationships. Again, this book is controversial, and I would adore having a conversation about it over a cup of coffee, because I just think there's so much that can be taken from it. The last book that I want to talk about that I haven't really seen or heard much about is When We Were Bright and Beautiful by Jillian Medoff. I read this book a few years ago, so I don't really remember like the ins and outs of like the plot, but I do remember how this book made me feel, and I was flabbergasted. You follow Cassie, the female main character, and her little brother is accused of a crime, and so we have to follow that process through her perspective of, oh my gosh, could my little brother have like done this horrendous thing? But he's this like outstanding stand-up guy, like he couldn't really do it. And it really digs into like that, do we believe the victim, do you believe the perpetrator, those things, which is a cool perspective from Cassie's POV, because like she is a woman, and so I think women are kind of inclined to believe other women, but she knows her brother, and so she has all this like internal torment. As the case unfolds, we also learn a lot of Cassie's backstory and like family dynamics. If you predicted the ending of this book, you are a psychic, because holy shit, I don't think that anyone could have predicted the end of this book. I reread it like 4 times when I read it the first time, because I was like, what the fuck is going on? It's so good. Again, it's kind of a book that everyone's gonna take away something different, because it does touch on such like a heavy topic. But I loved it. I think Jillian as an author wrote this story so well, in the sense of you can just consume it and it feels like a TV show. It feels like you are in it. It feels like you know the characters and you get to feel what they're feeling. So obviously I really enjoy heavier topics or content, but I think that really just like helps me grow as a person, because it gives me different perspectives and it really kind of sharpens my critical thinking skills in a way of like, how am I perceiving the world? What is reality? What is the truth? And how can I find it if I feel like I'm not getting it? I hope that these authors and books give you a new place to start on your reading adventure. If you could, in the comments, drop the books that made you fall in love with reading, or your go-to book recs for people who are just starting their reading journey. That would be awesome. Otherwise, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next week. Love ya!